The market doesn't know what keeps you up at night. It doesn't know when you want to retire, and it doesn't know how old you are. The simple truth is, the market doesn't care. But if you care, you've tuned into the right place. You're listening to Investor Resources, bringing clarity to the confusing world of finance. Here are your hosts of Investor Resources, Don Creech and Perry Sykes.
I'm Don Creech.
And I'm Perry Sykes, and welcome to the Investor Resources podcast.
So one of the items that is really important for economic growth in our country is the housing market. Housing drives a phenomenal amount of economic activity. Just think about it. For those of you who have purchased a house in the past, what did you need shortly thereafter and in the ensuing early years? New carpet, new drape, new appliances, yards, landscaping, plants. I mean, there's just a ton of stuff that rolls on and on and on. Yep. And if you've been in your house for any length of time, pretty soon you start some of over it again. New appliances, disposal, dishwasher. And I've been in my house now 22 years, and I'm on my fourth dishwasher.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm on my fourth dishwasher.
Right.
It just continues on and on and on, right?
And none of them were your kids. Yeah,
that's true. Actually, appliances are easier to manage than the kids were.
Right, no doubt. Yeah.
But the housing issue right now is a bit of a conundrum. The majority of people who own houses, especially the ones that free or clear, are the baby boomers. And the baby boomers are now in their golden years.
More golden than they were. That's right. Keep getting older.
But we go through a pretty typical cycle. It's a life cycle. And you get born, you're raised by your parents typically. You go to high school, you go to college, you get a job. Maybe you don't go to college, but you get a job, you move up through your career. You get married. After marriage, generally comes kids. With that comes college. Well, there's a big sports deal that shows up frequently beforehand. You get college, and then the kids go on, and you got some free years, years of forced savings, realizing that you didn't spend all your money on the kids, and you didn't have enough set aside for retirement yet. So savings accumulation increases significantly in the ages of 45 to 55 until retirement comes. And then comes retirement. And one of the assumptions was with baby boomers having so much money set aside for retirement, when retirement comes for them, they're going to spend down their money, and it'll be a massive transfer of wealth as people die off and they spend down their savings. That hasn't worked quite out the way that the forecast was because, first of all, the health change has occurred. Medical care has changed. Longevity's moved. So now baby boomers are expected to live into their 80s and 90s instead of their 60s and 70s. And they are just as concerned with capital preservation as they are with income generation. So they're not callously spending down their resources, and they're not selling their homes as frequently as in the past when they would to go live with their kids or go into a retirement facility or a care facility.
So everything's gone a little static. Yeah, especially with the interest rates where we are right now. If you're a boomer and you've owned your home for a while, and you've got that 3, 4, 5% mortgage, you don't want anything to do with a 7 or 8% mortgage. You don't want to make that transition. So they're only selling out if they're going to downsize, and then they can cash out wherever they're going to. They don't want another mortgage. So they're much more static in where they're staying right now. And it's starting to cause some problems because millennials are now finally moving into the suburbs or finally leaving the city. There were a lot of pundits that assumed that was never going to happen. The millennials all moved into the city. They wanted to live where they worked. They didn't want to own a car. They didn't care about owning a home. And a downtown apartment was great. Maybe a condo if they were really going to try to stay somewhere. But that traditional model of getting married, having kids, and moving to the suburbs was never going to happen. Looks like it's going to happen, just like every other age cohort. It just was a little delayed. The great financial crisis really did slow that down, and now with the rapid appreciation in real estate, now accompanied with the rapid appreciation in mortgage rates, that whole dynamic of when you're older, you're going to sell out and downsize and move somewhere else to your quote retirement home. People are like, my home's pretty good, and you know what's better? My mortgage rate. And I don't want to lose that for anything. So I'm just going to sit on this for a while. So it's slowing down right now, but that's keeping, the boomers are still in charge of the majority of that residential real estate because they are slowing the rate at which they're just turning that stuff over right now.
So even if they are mortgage free, they're making a decision about, in many cases, around where are my grandkids. If my grandkids are close and I have a big enough house and they're still coming over for holidays and birthdays, I'm not selling this place.
I'm not going, right.
If they're across the country, well, then I'm open to the move. Downsize, get rid of stuff, start the housing project all over again. But the millennials have delayed the normal demographic aging process, the economic aging process, by about 10 years. Because you're right. We go back 10 years and we're saying, well, these kids have no signs of being interested in even getting married, much less.
Right.
Only, why would you own a house if you're footloose and fancy free? But that's changing. And part of that is the biological clock that runs for family formation. If you're going to have children, there's a time limit on doing that in years where complications are least likely. So there's a little more pressure, I think, from the female side to say, we need to formalize this and make it permanent. We're going to have a family. We got to get this done.
Yep.
My grandson is just about to turn 40 with his first child. His wife is fortunately younger, so but slow to make the decision to move on to the next stage of life. But he's tickled pink, and so are we.
And that's very common. That has been the pattern. They are delaying, but like you said, Don, when you run up against that biological clock, that becomes non-optional. It's like, okay, if we're going to have kids, if we're going to do that, we need to get busy and do it. And we don't want to do that in the city. We don't, it's not as much fun to be walking down the city street with a toddler. So that's when it's like, okay, now we understand. We understand the need for the backyard. We know, oh yeah, we have to have a swing set back there because we need a break. We have to have somewhere to send those kids. So the backyard is where it is. The city park is not gonna do it anymore. So that's finally coming around, and it's tough. It's tough for the millennials right now with the high prices and the high mortgage rates, and baby boomers still controlling a huge share of the residential housing market, and perfectly content just to wait it out. And maybe if they're monetarily able, go ahead and maybe pick up another place, maybe pick up that house to use as a rental. So they're soaking up even more of the housing market because they can. They may be sitting on a ton of equity, and they may already be mortgage free in the home they're living in, and that gives them the flexibility to do that. The millennials don't have that yet. They haven't had time to live anywhere and have equity built up, or have saved the money yet. So they're much more confined in what their options are at this point. And the boomers just have that flexibility built in at this point in their lives.
So the mortgage rates will break probably in the next couple of years. And I don't expect to see a major drop in mortgage rates next year. I think that the assumption about the Fed being at a pause and cutting rates in the early part of next year it's a good story. It's optimistic, but inflation rages on.
It does.
I was speaking with a lady this morning, and she was complaining about the impact of inflation and the difficulty as a single woman with no kids at home just getting by from paycheck to paycheck. And I just recently covered an article on inflation, household inflation, the stuff that we have to buy just to keep a roof over our head, groceries, your auto insurance, your health insurance. And when we got our auto insurance renewal bill, my wife looked at that and said, she was shocked. I won't tell you what she said. She was shocked.
There you
She
go.
didn't swear, but I'm sure she was holding it back.
Right.
She said, I remember when we got married, our bill, car insurance wasn't expensive, and now it takes thousands of dollars to deal with your car insurance.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
that's a significant problem. And from 2020 to I think it was the 3rd of October, this calculation was done, household inflation is up 19%. And for most of America, wages have not kept up with that. So we're all feeling the pinch, which is probably one of the reasons there's a big shift in economic surveys about what kind of shape Bidenomics has put this country in.
Correct.
And it needs to be reversed. But the big reversal is only going to happen with reduced regulation and the government not intervening in markets and dictating what happens. The employment numbers that have been good have been dominated by the federal government hiring more people. Well, that doesn't work unless they tax more of us to pay for the extra payroll and the office space.
Obviously, yeah, obviously not sustainable. Obviously, that can't continue. You need some organic growth in there, and like you said, Don, wages aren't keeping up right now. And that kind of inflation that you see every day at the gas pump and the grocery store, those really do get everyone's attention and keeps it at the forefront of the news cycle, because that's stuff that you're spending every day, every month, that you're noticing what that's costing you. So the Fed really is interested in getting those inflation numbers down, and they are proving quite stubborn. So watching for those rates to start ticking down immediately. I think I'm on your side, Don. I don't think it can't happen as soon as many of the analysts think it could. It's going to take a while longer, because it's going to take a while for inflation to slow down enough that the Fed's going to feel comfortable in letting those rates come down. It's going to take a while.
Mr. Market has been ignoring Chairman Powell. Powell has been
Correct.
saying all year long, well, it's higher for longer. We may not have to raise this time, but expect this to be higher for longer. He's been warning. And the same problem has been going on with investors in England and Canada, in Europe, and in Australia. Well, Australia central bank finally said, you guys aren't listening. And they raised rates this week by a quarter point. Well, that gets your attention. My goodness, maybe they will raise rates some more. And if inflation
Right.
doesn't ease in broader numbers and faster, the Fed is stuck with the same problem. And we've mentioned in prior podcasts various presidents of regional Federal Reserve banks that have said, we have to see the data and it's just not there yet. Mr.
Right.
Market says, oh, yeah, but you guys are going to lower rates early next year. But I would argue that that's a sales pitch from Wall Street. Now,
Again.
from our
Yeah.
from our standpoint, we look at where's the leadership, where's it working, and if it's working, we want to own it. But we're not buying the story that the Fed's going to cut rates and bonds are going to fall and the stock market will hit new all-time highs. We don't buy that story. We have to see some evidence for what actually is happening. And while there are consistent glimmers of hope, there's nothing here that has, as a plant would grow, sufficient fertilizer and water to sustain a steady rate of growth.
Absolutely.
This
We'd be
this
more than happy for that all to happen. We want that all to happen. We want rates to go down. We want new highs in the stock market. And over time, of course, that's going to happen. But the schedule that some analysts are looking at is very, very optimistic, and it's very unlikely that it's going to happen that quickly, because some of these issues are much longer term in the way that they need to be addressed, and in the reaction of the market once rates do start to come down. Things aren't going to happen overnight. It's going to take a while. So patience is going to be necessary here for a little bit.
So it's easier to be a little bit patient with stocks and your portfolio than it is with buying a house. With that, you may
Sure.
be required to exercise patience for a longer period of time because housing inventory is not increasing. Mortgage rates are not dropping quickly. Be prepared. Watch if that's your objective. Watch for the opportunity because they will start showing up. I think sometime by the later part of next year or
Sure.
into 25. We should see some easing in both of those situations. Anyway, for today, I think that's probably a wrap. You want to contact us, phone numbers and the email are on the closing slide here. Subscribe to our website if you haven't already, and we will look forward to sharing with you again in the near future. Have a great day.